They say justice has no age, but I never thought the fight for it would come down to a kid barely tall enough to see over the witness stand. That kid was my son, Elijah. And the flight that changed everything started like any other rushed, routine, nothing out of the ordinary. But what happened at 38,000 feet turned into something that made national headlines, forced an airline into public apology, and showed the world that even the smallest voice can carry the weight of truth. It was 6 months ago. We were flying from Atlanta to Boston. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon. That morning, I'd been called in to perform an emergency procedure on a 10-year-old girl with a rare heart condition. I was the only specialist available within a 1,000-mile radius. My son, Elijah, was traveling with me like always. He never let me fly alone since his father passed away. David, my husband, died in police custody 2 years earlier after being wrongfully arrested at a peaceful protest. The official report said heart failure. No body cam footage, no charges, no answers. Elijah was 6 at the time, old enough to understand that something was taken from us, but too young to know how to make sense of it. So he did what David used to do, studied. And not just schoolwork. Law books, legal codes, case precedents. He became obsessed with justice, not the kind you shout about but the kind you prove. By 8, Elijah could quote the Civil Rights Act, the Air Carrier Access Act, and cite court cases that most second-year law students would stumble through. He didn't just memorize. He understood. It was his way of staying close to his dad, his way of making sure no one could ever steal the truth from us again. We arrived at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport a few hours before takeoff. Security was what you'd expect, polite enough to avoid lawsuits, but probing enough to remind you who they really suspect. A TSA agent triple-checked my hospital credentials, asked if I really needed to carry a surgical kit on board, and gave Elijah the kind of look that said, "You better behave." We boarded early first class. I don't say that to brag. I paid for it myself because I needed rest before a 6-hour surgery. As soon as we settled into our seats, I felt eyes on me. The flight attendant Vanessa Reynolds froze mid-smile when she saw us. She was all peaches and cream with the white passengers, offering champagne and warm towels. But when she got to our row, that tray of welcome drinks vanished. Her smile tightened. "Excuse me," she said, with a tone dipped in condescension. "These are first-class seats." "Yes," I replied, reaching for our boarding passes. "We're in the right place." She didn't argue, but she didn't apologize either. Just walked off. Elijah caught my eye. 3 squeezes on my hand. "I love you." That was our code. I smiled back, but I could already feel the weight settling in. As the plane filled, Vanessa offered drinks and hot towels to every passenger in first class except us. When Elijah asked for water, she said, "I'll get to you when I can." She never did. Elijah didn't say a word. He just pulled out his tablet, opened a note-taking app, and started recording timestamps. At first, I thought he was distracting himself, but I should have known better. Halfway through boarding, I got a call from Boston. The surgical team said the girl's condition had deteriorated. I needed to be prepped the moment we landed. So I took the call quietly, noting medications and procedures. I didn't even notice Vanessa approaching until she was standing right over me. "You need to end that call now. We're about to take off." I looked up. "It's a medical emergency. I'm a surgeon," I said now. She didn't shout, but the sharpness in her voice turned heads. I ended the call, apologized, and went back to my notes. Minutes later, Vanessa walked by with a drink for the man behind me who was still talking on his phone. Elijah turned to me and whispered, "She's building a case." "A case for what?" I asked. "To get us off this plane." I wanted to laugh, but he wasn't wrong. Then came the final straw. Vanessa accidentally spilled a glass of water on my medical documents. No apology. Just a lazy oops. Elijah stared at her, his little jaw clenched tight. And then it happened. An elderly man 2 rows behind us clutched his chest. The captain's voice crackled through the speaker. "If there's a medical professional on board, please notify the crew immediately." I stood up. Vanessa tried to block me. "We've got it covered." "No, you don't," said another attendant, who had overheard the call. The man Gerald Harper was having a cardiac episode. I stabilized him in 15 minutes. Oxygen, aspirin, airway check. Routine, but time-sensitive. When I returned to my seat, passengers applauded. Vanessa didn't. She called the head flight attendant and whispered something in his ear. Soon after, she returned with him. His name was Thomas Wright. He said, We've received reports of disruptive behavior from you and your son. Security will meet you upon arrival in Boston. I was stunned. For what? Saving a life. Vanessa chimed in. You used electronic devices during restricted periods. Your son was recording crew members. That's a breach. Elijah stood up. His voice was steady. Sir, under FAA Regulation 1212, FA 86, and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, selective enforcement of rules based on race is unlawful. And under the Air Carrier Access Act, passengers with medical responsibilities are allowed to maintain communication. The cabin went silent. Thomas blinked. Vanessa's face froze. Elijah kept going. I've documented every incident with timestamps, including differential treatment, denial of services, and verbal harassment. A woman across the aisle stood up. I saw it too. He's telling the truth. Then another. Then another. Suddenly, Elijah wasn't just a kid with a legal tablet. He was a witness advocate. Vanessa tried to regain control. She reached for Elijah's tablet. He stepped back. Ma'am, under U.S. Code 18 PR 242, deprivation of rights under color of law is a federal offense. Then a voice from behind. The boy is correct. A woman in a tailored suit stood up. Professor Eleanor Montgomery, Harvard Law School. Everything he said aligns with federal aviation law. Thomas looked like he'd seen a ghost. Vanessa, now desperate, declared, security will still meet you. We're following protocol. And then another man rose. Federal Air Marshal Daniel Ramirez. I've been monitoring this situation from the start. There is no security threat. What I have seen is a disturbing pattern of racial discrimination. Boom. The mood shifted. The captain came out of the cockpit. Elijah addressed him directly. Captain, I have documentation. My mother is en route to perform emergency surgery on a child with less than 3 hours to live. Any delay could be fatal. Dr. William Chun, Chief of Surgery at Boston Children's, stood up. She's the only one who can perform the operation. I requested her personally. The captain nodded. Dr. Johnson will deplane first. Everyone else remained seated. Vanessa didn't stop. They were disruptive. Captain raised a hand. Enough. When we landed, four security officers waited at the gate. Vanessa looked smug. But Elijah wasn't done. He stepped forward, folder in hand, and presented it to the lead officer. Everything's in here. Passenger statements. Legal citations. Evidence. The officer opened it, eyebrows lifting. Then Air Marshal Ramirez confirmed it all, and Dr. Chun demanded we be rushed to the hospital. The officer nodded. We're giving you a police escort. Vanessa tried to protest one last time, but the officer turned to her. We'll need a statement from you, ma'am. We made it to the hospital with minutes to spare. The surgery was a success. The girl lived. And the story? It exploded. Videos of Elijah speaking up mid-flight went viral. Little Legal Eagle trended for days. Atlantic Airlines issued an apology, fired Vanessa, and overhauled its discrimination protocols. 3 weeks later, Elijah got a letter. Harvard Law's youth summer program wanted him. He's 9 now, still quoting statutes, still studying case law. But more than that, he's building something called Young Justice Advocates. He's a group teaching kids about their rights in school, at home, in public. He says justice isn't about punishment. It's about prevention. I still fly for work. He still won't let me go alone. And every time we board, he holds my hand and gives it 3 squeezes. I love you. I squeeze back. And now, so does the world. If you've ever witnessed injustice and felt powerless, let Elijah's story remind you that knowledge is power and that courage, when paired with truth, is unstoppable. Let us know in the comments what you think. Was the airline's response enough? Should more be done to prevent this kind of discrimination? And what would you have done in Elijah's shoes? Hit like if you believe in justice for all, and subscribe for more stories that show just how powerful one voice can be. Thanks for listening.